The U.S. and China working to slap North Korea with tough sanctions. The two nations introducing a draft UN Security Council resolution to increase pressure on North Korea and their leader Kim Jong-un as a consequence of North Korea's nuclear program. Now, earlier this month, the North Koreans launched a rocket carrying a satellite into space, and last month, the North Koreans conducted its fourth underground nuclear test. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Samantha Power, goes on the record. Good evening, Ambassador. And is it true that this is significant to get China on board with us to deal with North Korea like this?
I think it's hugely significant. Now, the resolution hasn't gone through yet. We've introduced it to the full council. We're hoping for a vote in the next few days. But this is the most comprehensive sanctions resolution we've seen at the UN in more than 2 decades. And China had to think hard as a neighbor about what the effects of each of these provisions are. You know, banning aviation fuel from going in, banning Chinese exports of coal, which is a huge, North Korean exports of coal, which is a huge source of revenue for the North Koreans, except in livelihood purposes, except for humanitarian purposes, freezing assets of government officials, banning exports of other rare minerals. This is tightening the vice on North Korea in a way that up to this point China hasn't been prepared to do, and I think it is a very significant move on their part and ours.
I likewise agree with you. You know, this is big. This China, you know, first sort of stepping up and helping us on this. Has there been any sort of response from? There's a North Korean mission at the UN. Have they said anything at all?
Well, you know, on a daily basis, one hears from them, you know, all kinds of threats and all kinds of commitments to do this and that and to advance their program further. And as you know, they've defined the nuclear weapons program as being existential for them. So we don't expect, when this resolution goes through, and even if we get the kind of enforcement and implementation we need from China and from all member states to the UN, we don't expect an overnight transformation, you know, from this regime. You know them better than most. But we do believe that this resolution tightens gaps that had existed. I mean, they have managed, notwithstanding pretty crippling sanctions resolutions before this point, they've managed to do nuclear tests, to advance their ballistic missile technology, and we now see those gaps, and this resolution shores things up. I mean, even something like an arms embargo, for reasons you know, that don't make a lot of sense, there had been an insistence on the part of China to maintain a loophole in the arms embargo where they were able to get light weapons and small arms. That loophole closed. There had been an ability for DPRK to set up banks in other countries. That loophole now closed. There had been an ability to trade in gold and, again, coal and other natural resources and you know, use these illicit networks. Those closed if this resolution goes through, and if, as we expect, we get the implementation reflected in China's willingness to even put these provisions on the books.
Well, I see this as a big step forward. I don't know what's going to happen, because who can predict with that nation what's going to happen? It's always, you know, they're such a moving target to us. Were we close to having discussions before they had the early January nuclear test to have some sort of dialogue with them?
There has not been a lot of progress, as you know, since 2005, which is when we thought we were getting something going, where they were willing to engage in talks that were predicated on achieving complete and verifiable denuclearization. Nothing much has been cooking since then, and I think now what we're doing is trying to actually interfere in a very comprehensive way with their ability to get access to technology, access to know-how, access to money, all the tools that, notwithstanding their isolation, they've managed to use to build out that program.
Hey, Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us. And I know that this has been really tough, and I know that it's always so unpredictable with this nation. And we certainly, you know, we hope for the best. And you know, great that China's on board this time. So we'll see what happens. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thanks to you on the human rights front for always drawing us back to that issue as well. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ambassador.